Hello everyone, my name is Golnaz, and in this video tutorial I'm going to teach you how to use the app MLNA or Multilingual Network Analysis with Docker. So what are the use cases of MLNA? Imagine you are doing research on the development of telegraph around the world. To do this research, you have a bulk of digitized texts at your disposal. These could be historical texts, letters, documents, and maybe there are documents among these texts, the language of which you do not understand, but nevertheless, you would like to integrate them in your research, depending on if the content is relevant to you. One solution would be to have all of the texts, the language of which you do not understand, translated for you. But what if in the end, after you perform a close reading of all of these translated texts, you figure out that their content was actually irrelevant to your topic of research? MLNA can help you get an overview of the content of these texts, even if you don't understand their language, so that in the end you know exactly which ones are most relevant to you and worth translating into a language that you do understand, so that you can read only those relevant texts closely. To use MLNA, you need to download and install Docker Desktop first. To do so, go to the website docker.com, and under Products, you can see the option Download Docker Desktop for different operating systems. The recent release of Docker might not work on some operating systems depending on their version. If that is the case with you, you can go to another website, docs.docker.com, desktop release notes. I will put the link in the description box, and download a version that matches your operating system. I personally recommend the version 4.31.0. This is the version that has worked for me as well as for other people who have tested MLNA already. After you download and install Docker, you should open the app and you will see an interface that looks like this. The next step would be to create an account on the website Docker Hub. If you don't have such an account already, please go to the website hub.docker.com. And if you do not have an account yet, go ahead and click on sign up and create one. Otherwise, you can sign in using your existing account and then return to the Docker app. In the Docker app, you should sign in with your account. I have already signed in here. You can see I'm signed in as rallypal. You should do the same as well. And now we can start downloading the image of MLNA. To do so, you should go to this search bar and type in rallypal/mlna-app. Here is the image and click on pull. Now, when I go back to my Docker desktop, I can see the image here. I can click on Run under Actions and Optional Settings. Here, I'm going to give the container a name. I'm just going to call it MLNA. And here you should enter a host port. You should enter the number of one of your local ports. I'm just going to enter 80 and then run. And now you can see under containers in the left-hand side menu, you have the MLNA container, and down below you can see a link. If you click on the link, a page opens in your browser, and now you can start using the MLNA app. As I mentioned earlier, to use MLNA, you need a collection of texts that might also be multilingual. If you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can use the dataset that I have prepared for you. To download the dataset, click on this button, visit the MLNA repo on GitHub. On the GitHub page that opens, navigate to the folder Material for Tutorial, open it, and download the folder Iran telegraph data. I have already downloaded the dataset to my computer. Let's open the folder that contains the dataset and see what we have in it. Here you can see a bunch of TXT files. These are historical records about the development of telegraph in Iran in 3 different languages: English, Farsi, and French. I assume that at least one of these languages is unknown to you, but as you will see, that will not hinder you from accessing the content of the texts that were written in that language. The first thing you should do if you're using your own data is to arrange it in a table. I have decided to put the data into an Excel table, but you can put it in a CSV file or a pickled pandas data frame as well. The dataset and the Excel table are in this folder, Iran telegraph data. Let's open the Excel dataset and take a look at it. Here you can see multiple columns containing metadata about the text collection, including the full name of the file that contains each text, the title of the text, the source of the text, the year in which the text was written, and finally the full text of each one of the TXT files that you have gathered in your collection. But remember, regardless of which columns and how many of them you have in your dataset table, the columns text ID and full text are mandatory. Without these columns, mlna will return an error message and it will not function. Now that you know the data, let's load it in the mlna app. So I'm going back to my browser. Here under upload data, you can toggle between 3 different data types: CSV, Excel, and pickled pandas data frame. If you are loading a CSV file into the app, make sure to enter the encoding method of your file here, because you want to make sure that your multilingual texts and the characters that exist in them are read and converted successfully. I'm going to load my Excel table here, so I click on Excel. And here I can either browse my files or just drag and drop the Excel table into the app. And here you can see the table that we just viewed in Excel. A word of caution here: from here on, you're going to need an internet connection, because mlna constantly works with the API of Google Translate in the background to translate your multilingual texts to English. That being said, we can go ahead and enter the predefined entities. mlna reveals the content of the texts in your collection by visualizing network relations between the entities that exist in these texts. From this menu, you can choose which entities you want to see in the network graphs being visualized. I'm going to select people and countries, cities, and states. You can always return to this menu and change the entity list that you have created. Remember, in this tutorial, we are dealing with multilingual texts about the development of telegraph in the 19th century Iran. So the word telegraph must be central in the texts we have gathered. However, this word might not fall under the entity categories that we see in the entity menu. So we can enter telegraph in a user-defined list in the right-hand side menu and enter. And this way we make sure that this word also will exist as a node in the network graph that is going to be visualized. For now, I'm going to jump over the user dictionary function and go straight to the part network and community graphs and turn on network graph. The process of creating the graph is going to take some time, so I'm going to put the video on fast forward. Don't wonder if it takes more time on your computer to visualize the graph. Also note that every time that you change anything in this app interface, the entire program from the top to the bottom is going to be executed again, because this app was developed in Streamlit in Python, and that's how Streamlit works. I'm going to show you how to save more time by turning off the options that you do not need. So here I turn on Create Network Graph. There we go. Here you can see a network graph. You can zoom in and study the graph. If you would like to save it on your computer, which I suggest you do, you can click on download network graph. It gets downloaded. And here you can see I made a change in the app and the entire app is being run again from top to bottom, as I told you. To avoid that, I'm just going to turn off the option create network graph. I know that I have the network graph locally on my computer, so I don't need to view it here. Now I'm going to open the folder where the downloaded file is and open the visualized network. This network is representing the entities that I have chosen, plus the word telegraph as an entity that exists in my entire text collection. Let's zoom in and study the graph more closely. In a close look at the graph, I realized that it's not as precise as I would like it to be. For example, here, look at this word Nasser ad-Din Shah. This is the name of an Iranian Qajar king. And here is Nasser ad-Din, which is referring to the same king. And again, Nasser ad-Din Shah with a different transliteration. You can see that the different spellings and transliterations are recognized as different entities. Another instance of lack of precision is here India with capital I and India with lowercase I. Again, they have been considered as two different entities. In the next step, we're going to do some cleaning so that these entities are unified and the network graph becomes more precise. To achieve the desired precision in my network graph, I'm going back to the app to create a user dictionary. The user dictionary is a set of key value pairs that creates constant spellings for the node names. So I turn on create or upload a user dictionary. Do you already have a dictionary saved locally on computer? No, we don't have a dictionary yet, and we wish to create a dictionary. So here I choose yes. Now I should enter how I wish to create the dictionary, whether I want to do it manually or view suggestions. I choose view suggestions here. Again, it's going to take some time to create the suggestions and show them to me. Also, look at this threshold being equal to 80. This is the threshold for fuzzy matching that is used in the background to find similar entities. You can play with the threshold. You can bring it higher for more precision. You can bring it lower for less precision. Play with the threshold value a couple of times and use it to expand your dictionary in the next steps. But for now, I'm just going to leave it by 80. So here you can see that the app is showing me some words with similar spellings and asking me whether or not they represent the same entity. So here, Mirza Ghaffar Khan and Mirza Jafar Khan, I think they refer to the same person, and the name of this person should be written like this. Now I press enter. As I mentioned, every time you make a change in this interface, the app is going to run from top to bottom again. So it takes some time until the blurring goes away and you can see the rest of the suggestions. But you can actually ignore the blurring, the runtime, and go ahead and enter all of the unified spellings one after the other. So the next couple of words that are viewed as the same word with the threshold of fuzzy matching being 80 are Peterburg and St. Petersburg. I think they should be written like this. And I enter and go to the next. Morsi and Morse. I think these names are really not crucial for my graph visualization, so I'm going to jump over them. And then you can see telegraph, telegraph number, telegraph 2. I'm just going to enter a unified spelling for them, and I enter again, and so on and so forth. You can see, for example, Ali Qoli Khan with 2 different spellings again. I'm going to choose the first one as the standard spelling and enter it in this cell. And I'm going to wait a little until all of these cells are run and my dictionary is created. Okay, so I think for now I'm happy with the dictionary that I have created. So going to the next pair, I'm just going to click on exit. And the app is showing me the dictionary that I have just created in the form of a table consisting of the columns key and value. I suggest that you download the dictionary to your local drive to use or expand it in the next steps. Again, it's going to take some time to run the entire program from top to bottom. To avoid a long waiting time, I'm going to go back to the user dictionary section, and where I'm asked to enter whether I have a dictionary saved locally on my computer or not, I'm going to click yes. Here I can drag and drop the dictionary that I have created in the previous step and save to my local drive. The dictionary has been saved as user_dict.pickle. I'm going to drag and drop it into my app, and it shows me the dictionary in the state that it is in. Now the app asks me if I wish to expand the dictionary. I'm going to say yes, but this time I'm going to use a different method than fuzzy matching to expand the dictionary, and I'm going to click on do it manually. The reason is because having studied the graph closely, I have realized that there are some differing spellings of the same entity that are so different that they cannot be recognized by the fuzzy matching. For example, the country that we call Iran nowadays has been mentioned in some of the texts as Persia. Or for example, we have UK, United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom, and also Britain in the network graph, and I want all of them to be changed into Britain. So I'm going to go back to my app, click on expand the dictionary manually, and now I'm prompted to enter the standard spelling of an entity. So the standard spelling of the first entity is Iran. I enter Iran and enter. And all the variations of Iran that I have seen in my network graph are Persia and also maybe Iran with lowercase I. So I'm going to press enter. And then, do you want to add another key value pair? I'm going to say yes. I want Britain to be the standard spelling for UK, United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom. And I press enter again. And now, do you want to add another key value pair? No, I'm happy with the dictionary as it is. And as you can see, the new key value pairs have been added to my dictionary. I can go ahead and download the updated dictionary again to my local drive, and I can then go back to network graph, create network graph, and see the dictionary applied to my network graph. I can go back and forth between create and expand the dictionary and create network graph until I realize my network graph has achieved an agreeable degree of precision. I have already gone through this process and created an extensive user dictionary. Let's go up and load the user dictionary that I have created into the app. To do so, please go to the dataset folder, Iran Telegraph data, to the folder app data, and here you have the Telegraph user dictionary that is a pickle file. Let's drag and drop it. And here is the updated dictionary. You can here say, no, I don't want to expand the dictionary. I'm happy with it. And then create network graph again. Okay, here is the network graph that was created using the extensive dictionary that I have provided. I'm going to download it again and also turn off the network graph again so that my code doesn't have to go ahead and run it again. Let's now go to the folder where the network graph was downloaded and take a closer look at it. Here is a graph that I have visualized with a user dictionary, and when I zoom in, I can see that some of the nodes have become bigger and some of the edges have become thicker as compared to the original graph. This is because the nodes representing the same entity have been unified now. I can go ahead and study the graph more closely and look for personalities, places, and relationships between them and telegraph. But as you can see, this graph is still very messy because there are lots of nodes in it. mlna offers you some ways to make this network graph more readable and more minimal. Let's go back to the app and look at how you can do this. Here you have some network parameter controls. For example, here you can click on visualize the core only, and then you will only see the core of the network graph. Now, when I click on create network graph again, the app visualizes only the core for me, and as you can see, the core of this network graph is already telling me a narrative about the development of telegraph lines in Iran in the 19th century. I can see the names of Britain, London, and here Emden, Lowestoft. Apparently, the British have played a major role in developing telegraph in Iran. You can also see India. Maybe the telegraph lines that the British developed in Iran went through Iran to India. And interestingly enough, also the Russians played a role in developing telegraph in Iran, apparently. So if you find this core useful, you can download it. Otherwise, we can look at the second option of creating a minimal graph. This time, I'm going to turn off the create network graph option and also turn off the visualize the core only, and instead turn on include only selected nodes in the graph. This time, I'm going to select which nodes I want to see in my graph. I have prepared a list of the nodes that are interesting for me. These are Nasser ad-Din Shah, the Qajar king of Iran, telegraph, India, and Britain. So I'm just going to copy the list of these nodes that have been separated with a comma and enter them here, press enter, and then create the network graph again. Here is another minimalist graph. And as you can see, I have the nodes telegraph, Iran, Britain, and India in here, and also Nasser ad-Din Shah. Now let's look at the third way of creating a minimalist graph. This time, I only want to see the nodes that come from certain texts in my collection in the network graph. So I turn off the create network graph option, and also turn off the include only selected nodes, and turn on include only selected texts in the graph. And this time I'm going to pass a list of text IDs. Here I have prepared a list of the text IDs coming from the archive of the British Library. So I copy this list and paste it here. I press enter, and now I create the network graph again. And here I can see which entities and which relationships between them exist in the texts that I have gathered from the archive of the British Library. Last but not least, there is another way of creating a vivid graph showing the relationships between the entities that we have in the texts. To do so, I'm going to turn off the network and community graph options and also the network graph. And down here, create a community graph. You can zoom in, study the communities that have been detected by the app, and understand the relationships between the centers of these communities and the other nodes that belong to them. You can also download the community graph to your computer if you want. Otherwise, we can move to the next step. Using the different options of mlna, you have been able to detect important entities and relationships between them in your multilingual text collection. Now is the time to select those texts from among your collection that you want to read closely based on your findings. To do so, I'm going to turn off the community graph and go on to the next section, filter text data. So I'm going to turn on this option. And here you have two different choices. You should either pass a list of nodes that are of interest to you and receive a list of all the texts that contain these node names. Or alternatively, you can enter a list of two nodes and get a list of all the texts that contain the edge between these two. An edge in mlna implies the co-occurrence of the nodes in the same sentence. I have prepared two lists here. The first list includes the names of three different cities, Lowestoft, Emden, and Boucher. So I want to know which texts include the names of these cities and which role these cities played in the development of telegraph in Iran. So I'm going to enter this list. The error message that you can see here implies that the app has not been able to establish a connection to the API of Google Translate. So I should turn the option off and back on again. And I'm going to paste the list here again. And here I receive a list of all the texts in my collection that include the city names that I have entered. Alternatively, if I'm looking for an edge, I have to replace the node list by a list containing only two nodes. In this case, I want to see the texts that contain the relationship between the Indo-European Telegraph Company and Iran. So I'm going to copy and paste my new list here. And here, the app is asking me whether I want to see the texts that contain each node or whether I'm interested in the edge between them. So I'm interested in the edge. So the app is showing me only one text with this ID. I can also change the size of the column. This text with this ID contains the relationship between the Indo-European Telegraph Company and Iran, and this relationship has been mentioned only once in this text. After creating the list of texts that you want to do close reading on, you can save this list locally to your computer either as a pickled pandas data frame or as an Excel file. I'm going to download the list as an Excel file, navigate to the folder that contains the downloaded data, and open the Excel table. If you experience any problems or error messages while using mlna, or if you have any questions regarding the app, you can go to the top of this interface, click on Visit the mlna repo on GitHub, and in the GitHub page of mlna, you can click on Issues and click on Create an Issue. You can give your issue a title and write your question or describe your problem here and submit it. I will see the issues and questions and will try to answer or resolve all of them. Thank you very much for your interest in mlna. I hope you have fun using it and find it useful for your research. I would be happy to receive feedback from you, and goodbye.